Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing Atomic Habits by James Clear. The book first came out in 2018. I think in many places is still being printed in hardback because it's so popular and it's given so many people the tools that they need to actually work on their habits. I think it's a challenge with so many personal development books. They take 300 pages to tell you something they could have told you in 50 pages. That's not true for Atomic Habits. I think what he's doing is he's laying the groundwork and then he's giving you the tools and then he's giving you backup for those tools. And I think something we need to realize when we're observing people that we really admire, part of who they are is has been created through habits. In fact, I'm going to read a quote from the very beginning of the book. The quality of our lives often depends on the quality of our habits. With the same habits, you'll end up with the same results, but with better habits, anything is possible. So I think people hear that and say, okay, well, that's all well and good, but how do I get moving on my habits? And I think the book does an admirable job of answering, well, how can I make these habits for myself? How can I do so easily and sustainably? And what tools can I use? And I think at the start we should note habits start slowly. They start bit by bit, and they don't provide instant gratification. Again, let's look at some quotes from the book. It is so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. Too often, we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. Whether it is losing weight, building a business, writing a book, winning a championship, or achieving any other goal, we put pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. And the reality is, let's take working out because I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. You've got to start somewhere. And even if, let's say you start, I'm going to do 20 push-ups a day and however long that's going to take, it's going to take a while, not only for your body to accustom itself to that, you're going to be hurting for a while, but it's going to take a while for your body to adjust, and you've got to eat properly in order to build that muscle. You're going to have to add more protein to your diet. You're going to have to hydrate more. Otherwise, you can hurt yourself by working out. So habits take time, and it's easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. So instead of starting with those 20 push-ups, why don't you start with 5? Stop. The next day you could do 6. Stop. Maybe you do that 6 for a few more days, and then by the 5th day, maybe you're doing 7. But too many people, because of what has been generated in our society, the desire for instant gratification and change right now, is they want to do 20 push-ups and then they want to have that great body overnight. And they don't realize all of that takes time, and it's actually interconnected. You can't just work out. You have to eat well, you have to sleep well, you have to treat your body right. All those things are interconnected. So, in fact, one habit is tied to another habit. Habits often appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold and unlock a new level of performance. In the early and middle stages of any quest, there is often a valley of disappointment. You expect to make progress in a linear fashion, and it's frustrating how ineffective changes can seem during the first days, weeks, and even months. It doesn't feel like you are going anywhere. It's a hallmark of any compounding process. The most powerful outcomes are delayed. And what does that mean? It means that it's okay if you sometimes miss something, or you didn't do it. You weren't able to connect that chain. There's a very famous story about Jerry Seinfeld having to write a joke every day, and he would connect that. He didn't want to break that chain. By the same token, if you do manage to break that chain, it doesn't mean all is lost. Just make sure you get back on the horse and keep moving in a particular direction. Let me read what James says about this. It doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful you are right now. What matters is whether your habits are putting you on the path toward success. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. If you are a millionaire, but you spend more than you earn each month, then you're on a bad trajectory. If your spending habits don't change, it's not going to end well. Conversely, if you're broke, but you save a little bit every month, then you're on the path toward financial freedom, even if you're moving slower than you'd like. So that direction of travel, moving And it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to fail sometimes, but as long as you keep moving in that direction, that's really going to pay in the long run. And I think this is the quote I've heard most often from people who've read this book, and I totally agree with it. I don't know that it's the most important quote for me, but I do think it's an important quote, which is, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. I'll read that again. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. This is one reason why meaningful change does not require radical change. Small habits can make a meaningful difference by providing evidence of a new identity. And if a change is meaningful, it actually is big. That's the paradox of making small improvements. And those small things add up over time. Another way of phrasing this is a quote that means a lot to me, and it's something that I refer to all the time to my quote to others, which is, you must live the way that you think, otherwise you will end up thinking the way that you live. And so how do you end up living those thoughts? And those thoughts also relate to your actions and your habits on a daily basis. So keep moving in the right direction. Don't be discouraged when you fail, and stay focused on what the goal is. And what is the goal? The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument. The goal is to become a musician. True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with one is that it becomes part of your identity. Anyone can convince themselves to visit the gym or eat healthy once or twice, but if you don't shift the belief behind the behavior, then it's hard to stick with long-term changes. Improvements are only temporary until they become part of who you are. So remember, the goal isn't the habit itself, it's what sits behind the habit. What is it that I'm aiming at? If it, for example, is, we've got a bunch of books everywhere, if the goal is to become a reader, well, readers read books. So I'm going to have to read books. So the goal isn't necessarily to read this book, but I'd like to become a reader. How do I do that? By reading books, whatever book is around me. Your behaviors are usually a reflection of your identity. What you do is an indication of the type of person you believe that you are. So that can continue to be reinforced by your actions. The true question is, are you becoming the type of person you want to become? The first step is not what or how, but who. You need to know who you want to be. Otherwise, your quest for change is like a boat without a rudder. And that's why we're starting here. And so if you look at people who you admire, who have developed themselves personally or are successful in any way that you see them, yes, there are habits behind that, but it's not the habits that those people are attached to. It's what sits behind the habit. What is the sort of person that they would like to be? And the habits gravitate towards that. The habits drive and fuel that. Now, what I love about this text is he gives us a habit loop. Now, he says it's not his. He says it's from Charles Duhigg. And I'll put that up there a little longer. But it says cue, craving, response, reward. And it goes in that order. Cue, craving, response, reward. And that may not be apparent to us, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 examples of how this already occurs to you in your daily life. The cue. Your phone buzzes with a new text message, or flashes if you have it off, okay? Craving. You want to learn the contents of the message. Response. You grab your phone and read the text. Reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with a message or your phone buzzing. Here's another one. Cue. You wake up. Craving. You want to feel alert. Response. You drink a cup of coffee. Reward. You satisfy your craving to feel alert. Drinking coffee becomes associated with waking up. And this one was the one that really, and you'll see what I mean when I say enlightened me, because It's not anything I ever thought was a learned behavior, but it's so obvious that it is. Q. You walk into a dark room. Craving. You want to be able to see. 3. You flip the light switch. 4. You satisfy your craving to see. Turning on the light switch becomes associated with being in a dark room. That's the first thing almost all of us do. And just speaking for myself, that's the first thing. If I go into a dark room, I am looking for where the switch is. That is just a behavior which are related to this cue and this craving. So if I look at each of those, there is a technique that James Clear associates with that. So with the cue, so the phone buzzes, you wake up, you walk into a dark room, the cue. It should be obvious. Then secondly, the craving, make it attractive. What is it that I want from that? If I wake up, I want to feel alert. If I walk into a dark room, I would like it not to be dark. The response, it should be easy. Flipping a light switch is easy. Making a cup of coffee is easy. Picking up my phone to read a text message is easy. And the reward, make it satisfying. Will this solve the original cue? So when I create a habit, is it something that can fall through this mechanism such that I can do these things? Because if I can make it obvious and I can make it attractive and I can make it easy and I can make it satisfying, this is the nucleus of a habit. There's also other tools he gives you. And as in all my reviews, I'm not going to read the whole book. I'm just going to give you some ideas. But you can stack habits. So for example, if exercise is a habit, after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. So that way I'm setting myself up in the right environment to execute a habit. That's part of making it easy. Another, if I want to express gratitude, after I sit down to dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for that happened today. Could be when before I get dressed for work, I will write down something in my gratitude journal. Marriage. After I get into bed each night, I will give my partner a kiss. So this idea of setting yourself up in the right environment so that these habits accrue and then don't become habits, but become part of who you are. So I'll conclude with this idea, the 2-minute rule. Even when you know you should start small, it's easy to start too big. When you dream about making a change, excitement inevitably takes over, and you end up trying to do too much too soon. The most effective way I know to counteract this tendency is to use the 2-minute rule, which states, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do so. You'll find that nearly any habit can be scaled down into a 2-minute version. Read before bed each night becomes read one page. Study for class becomes open my notes. Fold the laundry becomes fold one pair of socks. Run 3 miles becomes tie my running shoes. The idea is to make your habits as easy as possible to start. Anyone can meditate for 1 minute, read one page, or put one item of clothing away. And as we have just discussed, this is a powerful strategy because once you started doing the right thing, it is much easier to continue doing it. A new habit should not feel like a challenge. The actions that follow can be challenging, but the first 2 minutes should be easy. What you want is a gateway habit that naturally leads you down a more productive path. There's a lot more that I could talk about, as I say, but I think I've given you the kernel, the main idea, that cue, craving, response, reward, and that we're not seeking the habit itself. We're seeking what lies behind the habit, the sort of person that we want to become, and that each action that we take in that direction, even if we fail sometimes, is going to move us towards that goal, and that's what we want. So if you like this review, if you think of someone who could benefit from this, someone who's maybe complained to you about habits, recommend this book, but you maybe recommend this review to help them get interested in the book. Hit like, hit subscribe, share this with other people who you think could benefit from this. If you'd like to support my work more, you can consider joining my Patreon. You'll get reviews like this early. You could also join the YouTube members. It's the same type of membership. Or you could, if you just want to say thanks just for this one video, you can use Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal. Those links are below. A note that any proceeds from my channel during 2024 are going to go to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. A portion of these proceeds are going to go to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, which is helping to give medical care to children in Palestine who could not otherwise receive that care. And if you'd like to look at 2025 and potential books I could review then, you can check out my Amazon wish list. That's also linked in the description below. Until next time, enjoy your reading.